Hi, good morning. It's time to talk about Time Cut, a totally new slasher about a teenage girl who goes back in time and has to stop a killer in the past to change her life and her future. Whoa, deja vu. Anyway, this movie stars Madison Bailey from Outer Banks and Griffin Gluck from Cruel Summer Season 2, the second season. And I did like this movie. I thought it was something different, so I would recommend watching it, but I already have, so I'm going to get right into spoilers. The movie starts on April 18th, 2003. Summer, played by Ginny from Ginny in Georgia, arrives at a barn party. Her friend Quinn tries to give her a note, but they're interrupted by her ex Ethan, who pulls her away. Quinn walks away, and then a masked killer shows up. Ethan makes a toast to their friends Brian, Val, and Emmy, who were recently murdered by the Sweetly slasher. The killer follows Summer into the bathroom and then chases her until he catches her in another barn and kills her. 21 years later, on April 18th, 2024, Lucy wakes up and receives an email that she was accepted into the NASA internship program. At school, she shares the news with her science teacher but says that her parents will never let her go to DC for 3 months, but I bet by the end of the movie she gets to go. In the hallway, some girls talk about the murders.
4 kids murdered in 3 nights and they never even caught the guy. Yeah, it was just like a horror movie. They should seriously start a podcast.
No podcast. You want the return of a serial killer? Because that's how you get the return of a serial killer. Also,
The first 2 were at the mall. Ew, malls.
Okay, that one stung. That one got me. I do feel attacked. At home, the family has left Summer's bedroom untouched as a perfect time capsule of a teenager's bedroom in the early 2000s. Lucy finds a loose floorboard hiding a stash of letters. She finds one from somebody signed E and pockets it before the family heads to Olive Garden for dinner. She tells her parents about the internship in DC, and they don't even consider it for a second. They don't even congratulate her. Her dad just tells her that she can get an internship at his work in town. But here's the thing, that's where the killer was, and they were never caught. So wouldn't she actually be safer in a different city where the killer probably isn't living in your community? At Summer's memorial site, Lucy finds a time machine with the company logo of where her dad works in one of the barns and accidentally activates it, which sends her back to April 16th, 2003, the day of the first murders, Brian and Val at the mall. She leaves the barn and heads to the school to find Mr. Fleming, her science teacher. In the hallway, she sees Summer, and oh my god, Madison Bailey is 5'9", and Antonia Gentry is only 5'1". It threw me for a second, and I had to rewind and then Google their height. She watches as Ethan tries to talk to Summer. He's confused about why she broke up with him after 2 years, but he'll stay confused because Summer and Val just ignore him and head to class. Lucy finds Mr. Fleming and asks what he thinks about time travel. Of course, Quinn is hanging out in the science room because he's a total nerd, a physics genius, actually. And oops, he says traveling to the past is a terrible idea that could create devastating ripple effects. Oh, really, Quinn? Oh, really? Ethan and his buddies almost throw Quinn in the river as everybody cheers them on. Everybody cheers them on. But Lucy intervenes and pushes Ethan down. I think he's in shock from being shoved by a girl. It's funny, but weird, because I totally thought he was just going to throw her in the river instead. Quinn is ungrateful for the save, but Lucy confides in him anyway that she's from 2024. He wants proof that she's from the future, so she shows him her phone, but he's like, what's that? I don't care. So she unlocks it with Face ID, and suddenly he's marveling at it being like a mini pocket computer. Lucy and Quinn find Summer. She apologizes for Ethan earlier and says that she had dumped him, but then she asks Quinn for his chemistry homework. Summer and Lucy officially meet, and Summer casually drops the bomb that Lucy is her middle name, and I am enraged finding that out. I want to fight Lucy's parents. Lucy shows Quinn the time machine and enlists his help to get home, so they take the machine back to Quinn's garage. Lucy finally considers stopping the murders, but Quinn cautions her against it because it could create a paradox. Quinn gives Lucy a ride to Summer's house and realizes that Summer is her sister and warns her again against interacting with her family, but interacting with her family is technically their best chance at getting their replacement light bulb that they need to send her home. Quinn gives Summer the wrong homework so that Lucy can offer to help her with her chemistry, and she gets invited to stay for dinner. The house is bright and her parents are in much better spirits, and Lucy is surprised to find out that her mom actually cooked dinner. But her mom says that cooking with Summer is her favorite time, and that's so sad. It's such a bummer for Lucy to see how loving her parents were towards Summer, knowing that's not her experience with them. In Summer's bedroom, the girls work on homework, and Lucy asks Summer if she would try to stop something bad that she knew was going to happen, and Summer says, yeah, who wouldn't? So Lucy heads to the mall. As she rushes to the 3rd floor to find the kids, the killer kills Brian and corners Val until Lucy shows up and the girls escape to the escalator. But at the bottom, the killer appears in a way that shouldn't be possible if it's just one person. He kills Val at the bottom of the escalator and stabs a security guard, adding to his body count this time around. The killer flees, and Quinn catches up with Lucy and gives her a ride back to his place. He lets her stay in some boat that he has, and she's pretty upset that she made the Sweetly slasher even more deadly by getting the security guard involved. And Quinn realizes that only serial killers get names, so he stops Lucy from telling him anything more. The next morning, Lucy sneaks into Summer's house to steal her dad's work badge. Summer catches her, but is understandably more curious about how Lucy knew the murders would happen at the mall. Lucy explains that she's her sister from the future handing over the note as proof, but Summer hasn't seen it before because it's not 5 minutes from now when she finds the note in her locker and realizes that Lucy was telling the truth. At Quinn's place, they talk about the time machine. Summer shows up, and now all three of them are on the same page about Lucy being from the future and knowing about the serial killer, but Lucy lies when Summer asks her about her own future. Summer demands to know who dies next and wants to stop it, even more when she finds out that it's Emmy. So Summer, Lucy, and Quinn head to the museum to look for her. Summer sees her through a window as the killer is approaching, but she gets Emmy's attention and they escape. Happy that they saved Emmy, Lucy tells Quinn that she wants to save the next victim and finally tells him that it's Summer. He agrees that they have to save her, even though he thought they shouldn't interfere at all. When Summer wants to save the victims, then suddenly he's on board. And then when Summer's the next victim, then definitely he's on board. At the Olive Garden with Summer, Lucy realizes that the note she found was actually from Emmy, and Summer admits that they were both going to come out to their parents, but she doesn't think she can do it. Luckily, Lucy has good news about the future of gay marriage, but it makes Summer ask why Lucy said she'd end up with a husband, since that's a fate worse than death. And I agree, Summer. I agree. Summer asks if they're friends in the future despite the age difference and wonders why their parents waited so long to have another kid, which makes Lucy realize that they only had her because they lost Summer, so she doesn't tell her the truth about being the next victim. The next morning, Lucy almost swipes her dad's work badge, but he catches her, and maybe I'm crazy, but I feel like she was about to say dad, but had to catch herself, and if that's what that is, I think that's a great detail, because yeah, it would be a complete mindfuck to stay with your parents from 20 years ago that you can't call mom and dad. I call my mom Mom so much. Lucy's dad invites her into the kitchen and asks what she's doing over the summer, so she gets a second chance to share the news of her internship and actually get the response that she should have gotten the first time. Her mom even says, "Your parents must be so proud," to really drive the point home. In the beginning, I thought they were being like that because it was the anniversary of Summer's death, but now it's just clear that they're just like that in the future compared to how they are in 2003. Lucy asks them if they ever thought about having another kid, and they literally laugh at the question, saying that one is enough for them. So Lucy steals her dad's work badge and heads to Quinn's place. She finds the letter that he tried to give Summer at the barn party, and of course, it's a love letter confessing his feelings. Quinn shows up and she explains to him that she didn't tell Summer about being the next victim because if Summer lives, then she dies. Quinn says that he can't just let Summer die.
Did you hear me? If she lives, then I'm gone.
Lucy, I can't just let her die.
So Lucy confronts him with his letter, and he storms off. He didn't think she should change anything. He didn't think she should interfere. He didn't think she should interact with her family. But now that her life is specifically at risk, he can't let Summer die. Cool. Thanks, Quinn. Lucy heads home and tells Summer everything, that if she lives, then Lucy won't exist, but she feels like she never existed anyway, so she has a plan to save Summer tonight. I don't know, crazy idea. Just live here. Like, yeah, it changes time, but you can literally be with your sister and the better version of your parents, and the parents you left won't know because they won't exist in the same way. Lucy heads to her dad's work, and Quinn shows up, so they sneak inside together to steal the replacement bulb of antimatter that they need to send Lucy home. Summer arrives at the barn party, and knowing what I know now about her and Emmy, and that Emmy had died the night before in the original timeline, it's crazy that Summer went to the party in the first place, or even that her parents let her go. But she seems very confident, so there's definitely a plan going on. She joins Ethan for his toast and then kisses Emmy in the middle of the dance floor and tells her that she loves her, and like, that's fine, live your truth, but give a guy a heads up. The killer shows up, and Summer leads him through the path of their original chase. Lucy and Quinn find the antimatter they need, along with the dead security guard, and realize that the killer has already been here to steal their own antimatter, which means the time machine is the killer's, and they're from the future. Another killer from the future. Interesting, interesting. Ending up in the barn where she was originally killed, Summer trusts that Lucy will save her, and she does. Quinn drives into the barn and knocks out the killer. Summer gets in the truck with Lucy and Quinn, but then the killer starts to move, and right away the girls are like, "Oh, you have to run him over. You have to kill him."
You gotta run him over.
Quinn, kill him, hurry!
You gotta run him over!
But the killer gets up with his broken mask and tosses it aside, revealing that it's older Quinn. The kids rush back to Quinn's place, and he tells Lucy that he's never going to become that monster, but like some version of events led you there. Older Quinn, who is so creepy, but actually I think the actor is doing a really good job because he feels like a completely different person. He shows up and says Summer laughed at him when he got thrown into the river, which Lucy stopped this time around, and that she rejected his love letter by saying she could never love him like that, which he misinterpreted. So he made a plan to kill Summer and her friends and disappear through time. I'm confused about how and when because this is older Quinn, so did Summer live a life and then Quinn went back in time and killed her, which then continued through to 2024, where Lucy also jumped back? I think that's what it is. Quinn holds a box cutter to his throat and threatens to take his own life, but older Quinn says that's not how time travel works. Lucy gets the time machine working and grabs older Quinn, pulling him in and spitting them out in a parking garage. They fight and she manages to shock him with a charging cable, but it just knocks him out, so she has to stab him in the chest to finish him off and then steals his stolen antimatter. She returns to 2003 and tells Summer and Quinn that she got back to 2024 and realized where she was meant to be was here, but as they're walking away, she nonchalantly mentions that her parents had no clue who she was, so she actually didn't have a life to go back to anyway. Lucy does technically get accepted into the 2003 NASA internship program, but I'm calling bullshit because she was originally accepted in April of 2024, but in 2003 she applied in April at the earliest and got accepted with no school transcripts. I don't buy it. I did like this movie, but then I looked up some reviews to get the vibe of what everyone else was thinking, and that was a mistake because other people are not liking it as much, and I can see why. This movie didn't even feel like a slasher to me because I was so focused on the story. I like the idea of these parents having another child after losing their first one and seeing how different their lives are with technically the same parents, but at very different points in their lives. I thought that was interesting, but it's definitely not what I was expecting going into the movie. Having just rewatched Totally Killer, I was excited to see how Time Cut handled the same kind of time travel serial killer premise, but I'm not sure about the time travel. I think the victims did live to be older originally that we never see, and then older Quinn figures out time travel and goes back to the day of the river incident to start his killing spree, which ends at the barn party, which is where we start the movie. So he changes history the first time, killing Summer, which eventually leads to her parents having Lucy, who then travels back in time and starts changing history herself. The villain of this movie is a guy who's mad at one girl out of a crowd for maybe laughing at him as 4 guys throw him into the river. Was he mad at those 4 guys that actually did the thing to him? Did he kill them? No. But I think the only reason Ethan wasn't a victim was so he could be a suspect. This movie was announced a year before Totally Killer, and then it came out a year after, so I don't know what that's all about. Obviously, I think they're similar enough to compare them, but they are very different movies with pretty different tones. Totally Killer was more of a fun and funny movie, but with Time Cut, I was more invested in the story and the characters, and they're both about bullying, which is interesting. I think Totally Killer had more humor and Time Cut had more heart, if that makes sense. It's not so dramatic, but Time Cut was being a little emo sometimes, which is good. I liked comparing the movies, but I'm glad they were pretty different in the end. I don't think I would have liked if it was just the same movie in a different era. No, I immediately take that back. I want a time travel slasher for every decade now. 1920s, 1950s, 1960s, 2010s, 90s. That's all the decades. Lucy finds a loose floorboard. Lucy finds a loose